Welcome back to the course on soil mechanics. In the last class, we were trying to discuss about how to determine what is called as liquid limit value of the given fine grained soil, and where we have seen the Casegrande method by which we are going to be estimating your liquid limit value of the given fine grained soil. In today's class, we are going to be talking about the other consistency limits, how we are going to be determining, that is your plastic limit and subsequently the shrinkage limit. And then if time permits, we will be focusing on what is called as Casegrande's plasticity chart. So in the last class, we have looked at how to determine the liquid limit value based on your Casegrande's method. And apart from that approach also, we have got different other approaches based on which you can also subsequently determine the liquid limit value of that particular given fine grained soil. So this is another method by which you are going to determine the liquid limit value of the given soil, which is given by US Army Corps of Engineers. It's an empirical relation what is given for determining the liquid limit value of the given soil. So where the expression for determining the liquid limit is given as Wn, it's nothing but the water content that is existing in that particular soil into N by 25, where N indicates the number of blows. I repeat, N indicates the number of blows, and divided by 25. 25 is the standard number of blows to the power tan beta. This is a coefficient which is approximately considered as 0.121. The tan beta value is approximately considered as 0.121. So even in this empirical relation what we have here, we are going to be once again referring to that of your Casegrande's testing apparatus only. But we are not going to be conducting the test minimum of 3 to 4 times to have your graph plotted for determining what is the liquid limit corresponding to exactly 25 number of blows. Rather, by conducting that Casegrande's test, once we'll be able to make use of this empirical relation to subsequently find out what will be the tentative liquid limit value of that particular soil. Okay, how do we do that? So we are going to be performing your Casegrande's test. That is your liquid limit test, which is proposed by Casegrande. What we do is we take your fine grained soil sample, add some amount of water to it, thoroughly mix it, and take that soil sample, put that soil paste into your Casegrande's cup. With the help of your grooving tool, cut that soil into 2 parts, and then start raising your cup and leave it so that it falls on your hard rubber base, and keep rotating your cup in the process to determine how many number of blows are required to subsequently see that your 2 separated parts come closer to each other, more or less by a contact distance of ½ inch. That is approximately around 12.5 or 12.7 mm. So once you see that, okay, the contact between those 2 separated pads is developed by ½ inch, then we stop the test and we see how many number of blows we have given. And that number of blows what we have given is what is this capital N in the expression. And the corresponding water content which was existing in that particular soil, which required n number of blows to be given, has to be determined by placing the part of the soil sample in the oven drying and determine the water content that is existing in that particular soil, which was requiring n number of blows to be given. And that water content has to be accordingly substituted here in the expression in the place of Wn. Okay, so water content is known and the corresponding number of blows what were required is known. Then we go on to subsequently calculate your liquid limit value of that particular fine grained soil. It's based on an empirical relation. So, however, we'll be still making use of this to approximately get what is the liquid limit value of the soil. It's not going to be exactly giving you what is the liquid limit value of that particular fine grained soil, but approximately you can still make use of this expression to determine the liquid limit. So equation, the earlier expression, whatever we have seen, generally yields good results for the number of blows whatever we have obtained for that single test whatever you have carried out. If the number of blows value, if it is in between 20 to 30, then by making use of that empirical relation, whatever the liquid limit value that we are going to be determining would be relatively more accurate. More accurate in the sense, the results whatever you are going to be getting can be in a better way considered as the appropriate liquid limit value of that soil. Another method by which we can go on to determine the liquid limit value is based on what is called as fall cone method or falling cone method, we can call it as. Okay, so what do we do in this particular falling cone method means we are going to be having a standard cone which has got a weight that is 0.78 newtons and which has got the cone. Once we say cone has got some apex angle with the horizontal. How much angle is it making? This angle is nothing but it is 30 degrees. So the apex angle what that cone is making is 30 degrees and it's a standard cone where the weight of that standard cone is 0.78 newtons. Okay, so this particular cone is allowed to pass through your soil in which you are required to determine your liquid limit value. For whichever soil you want to determine the liquid limit value. So in that particular soil, first what we try to do is we take the fine grained soil, mix certain quantity of water to it, thoroughly mix it, the soil and the water, you thoroughly mix it, you get a proper kind of a thoroughly mixed fine grained soil paste. Take that soil paste, put that soil paste into a cup. I repeat, we place that soil paste into a cup and that cup is going to be placed at the base of your cone. That cone will be brought in contact with the surface of the soil which is placed into that cup and will be leaving that cone because of the self weight of that particular cone. If the cone exactly penetrates by a depth of 20 mm in 5 seconds, I repeat, if the cone penetrates because of its self weight, if the cone penetrates by a depth of 20 mm within a duration of 5 seconds, then the corresponding water content what was existing in that soil is what we call it as the liquid limit value of that particular soil. So when that cone is dropped because of its own weight, if the cone penetrates by a depth of penetration 20 mm into that soil pad or soil paste during a period of 5 seconds. So within 5 seconds, if the depth of penetration what is seen in the cone is by 20 mm, then the corresponding water content existing in that soil is what we call it as your liquid limit value of that particular soil. This is one of the approach. But however, it's once again going to be a kind of a trial and error process because you cannot exactly say if I mix this much water content, then my cone would penetrate by 20 mm in 5 seconds duration. So it's not going to be possible. So as similar in the case of Casagrande's approach, how we have done our test, here also we'll be doing in the similar way. What we do here is you add some quantity of water, you prepare that soil and place it into that cup and allow the cone to penetrate into that soil and within 5 seconds measure how much penetration happened in your cone. Note down that. And corresponding water content, you try to determine what was existing, how much corresponding water content was existing in that soil sample, you determine. Next, add some other proportion of water to that soil, thoroughly mix it and once again perform the test. And this time we would be required maybe in 5 seconds duration you might be getting some other depth of penetration and for that depth of penetration what is the corresponding water content you are going to be having in that particular soil, you again determine. So carry out this particular test, repeat this test and that 4 to 5 times whatever the number of times you are trying to repeat that test, have that data, go on to plot a graph now. Okay, so we'll be plotting a graph between water content versus depth of penetration and from that graph we'll be subsequently determining, okay, for exactly 20 mm depth of penetration, what is the corresponding water content we'll be getting from that graph is what we determine it as the liquid limit value of that particular soil. So this is what I was trying to talk about. Soil is thoroughly mixed with that water quantity and it is subsequently placed into your cup, whatever you could see here. And you are allowing your cone to penetrate into that particular cup. So, yeah. So this particular apparatus basically is what we are going to be using in this cone penetration or falling cone method. Okay. So due to the difficulty in achieving the liquid limit from a single test, because exactly we cannot say what is the corresponding water content, you have to properly mix so that no depth of penetration is going to be 20 mm exactly for a duration of 5 seconds. It's not going to be possible. So as it is not possible from a single test, we repeat the test for different water quantities added to that particular soil which is placed into the cup. We repeat the test 4 to 5 times under different water contents added so that we go on to determine different depths of penetration for the different corresponding corresponding water contents added to that particular soil. And from that, we'll be going on to plot a graph. Okay, so a graph between depth of penetration, which is indicated on the horizontal axis, and that too on a log scale on the horizontal axis. On the vertical axis, we are going to be representing what is called as your moisture content. So for different data points, whatever you have, try to fit in a best possible straight line. And once you fit in that best possible straight line, what is this particular test saying? Standard depth of penetration, which is equal to 20 mm. So I'll go to that 20 mm standard depth of penetration. For the standard depth of penetration of 20 mm, wherever my point intersects on your straight line, whatever you have drawn, so that intersected point, project it onto your vertical axis, it gives you some moisture content or water content, and that water content is in fact what we call it as your liquid limit value of that particular soil, what we are determining from your falling cone method. So any of the method, either your Casagrande's method or your falling cone method, can also be used for subsequent determination of the liquid limit of the soil, but most commonly we will be seeing the Casagrande's method being used in determination of the liquid limit value of the soil. Next is how to determine the plastic limit value of the given fine grained soil. Okay, so plastic limit is nothing but it is the water content at which the soil gets changed from what is called as plastic state to that of your semi-solid state, or semi-solid state to that of your plastic state. So that water content, what is existing in the soil, at which your state of the soil gets changed from plastic to semi-solid or semi-solid to plastic. So that is what we call it as your plastic limit value of the soil. So whenever we say the soil is in a plastic state, then the soil can be molded or shaped into your own desired requirement. It means any kind of doll, if you want to prepare any particular shape of anything that you want to prepare. So when the soil is in a state what is called as the plastic state, the soil can be molded or modified to your own desired shape to achieve what is that you are looking at. Okay, so that state at which the soil is existing is what we call it as plastic state, and the corresponding water content which keeps your soil in between what is called as semi-solid to that of your plastic state is what we call it as your plastic limit. Now, how are we going to determine this plastic limit? So what we try to do is we take some fine grained soil which is added with certain quantity of water. Okay, so we thoroughly mix the water to that soil and we try to prepare a kind of a ball. Okay, we try to prepare a kind of a ball, and we the ball whatever we are trying to prepare will be rolled over the surface of a glass plate. I repeat, the ball shaped soil sample is rolled over the surface of a glass plate. Why over the surface of a glass plate? Why not over the surface of a hand or maybe on any other tile? Means when you are trying to roll it on any other surfaces, there is a possibility that that particular surface might absorb some amount of water which is present in that soil. So in order to avoid that, we are trying to roll it on the surface of a glass plate. That is only the reason. Okay, when you are rolling that particular soil in the form of a thread by rolling it on a glass plate, exactly when that particular soil is rolled into a thread of 3 mm, if you find the cracks forming on the surface of that particular soil thread. Okay, so when the soil thread starts crumbling, when it is rolled into a diameter of 3 mm, then we are going to say the corresponding water content what was existing in that particular soil is what we call it as the plastic limit value of that soil. Okay, so Casagrande defined the plastic limit as water content at which a thread of soil, when you are trying to roll the soil sample into the form of a thread, when that thread of soil just crumbles, when it is carefully rolled to a diameter of 3 mm, so that corresponding water content what was existing in the soil is what we define it as plastic limit value of the soil. So it should break into segments, or your soil thread breaks into segments or pieces. Okay, so that corresponding water content is what we call it as your plastic limit value of the soil. In case if the thread what you are trying to roll is crumbling at a diameter smaller than that of your 3 mm, we require the soil thread to crumble exactly at 3 mm. But in case if it is the soil thread is getting broken, crumbling in the sense cracks are getting developed on the surface of your soil thread. Okay, so when it is rolled to a diameter which is smaller than 3 mm, it means that the water content that is added to that particular soil is more than that of the plastic limit value of that particular soil. So what I have to do, I should take some dry powder of that soil, thoroughly mix once again with that soil, and then repeat the test to ensure that exactly when rolled to a diameter of 3 mm, the corresponding soil thread has to undergo the failure. You should see the cracks getting developed on the surface of that soil thread, which indicates the failure in that particular soil thread. In case when the soil thread is, when you are trying to roll it into the form of a thread, when the soil is rolled into the form of a thread, at a diameter which is more than 3 mm itself, if you see the cracks getting formed on the surface of the thread, it means the water content added to that particular soil is less than that of your plastic limit. So in such case, add some more water to that particular soil, once again prepare a ball and start rolling it into the form of a thread, and exactly see that at 3 mm diameter when you are rolling it, the crumbling should start on the surface of your soil thread. Then the corresponding water content existing in that soil, you can go on to determine by placing it inside the oven to know what is the water content existing in that soil sample, which in fact we are calling it as the plastic limit value of the soil. So there is a test process, whatever I have said. Okay, so this how your test is going to be performed. We initially first roll it into the form of a ball, and then into an ellipsoidal shape, and then subsequently rolled into the form of a thread, and you would see that cracks getting formed on the surface of that particular thread when rolled exactly into the diameter of 3 mm. Then the corresponding water content, what is called as the plastic limit value of the soil. This is one of the approach by which you can determine the plastic limit value, and relatively the easiest approach. You don't require any equipment. It's easy to determine the plastic limit value of the soil. And apart from that approach, what we have seen now for determining the plastic limit, there is another method that's nothing but once again by making use of your falling cone method only, you can still again determine what is called as the plastic limit value of the soil. But earlier the weight of the cone what was used was different, and here the weight of the cone what we are going to be using in the test is going to be different. Apart from that, the complete test procedure, everything what we are going to be doing is going to be same. Okay, so here the weight of the cone what we are going to be using is nothing but it is 2.35 newtons. So when you are going to allow the free fall of your 2.35 Newton cone, that much 2.35 newtons weight of the cone, when it is allowed to pass through that soil which is placed into the cup, if the depth of penetration of your cone is exactly 20 mm for 5 seconds duration, within 5 seconds, exactly at 5th second, if the depth of penetration what takes place in your cone is equal to 20 mm, then the corresponding water content what was existing in that soil is nothing but we call it as your plastic limit value of that particular soil. That's how we go on to determine what is called as your plastic limit value of the soil. But however, from the single test, it may not be possible for us to exactly determine the plastic limit value from that falling cone test. Okay, so what we do is, it's a trial and error process again. You repeat the test for different water contents added to that soil, and at 5 seconds duration, what is the depth of penetration you try to measure, and the corresponding water content what was existing in the soil you try to determine, and that 4 to 5 times test data you try to plot it on a graph as like what we have discussed earlier, and corresponding to an exact 20 mm depth of penetration, you try to extend that point onto that graph or the curve what you have plotted and extend it onto the vertical axis, which gives you that what is the corresponding plastic limit value of that particular soil. This 40% is a rough number what we are indicating, but that's how we go on to determine what is the plastic limit value of that particular soil. So once the liquid limit value of the soil is known and plastic limit value of that particular fine grained soil, see, liquid limit you should not determine for some other fine grained soil, and plastic limit you should not determine for some other fine grained soil. When you are saying for some particular fine grained soil, you are trying to talk about your Atterberg limits. All your Atterberg limits, whatever you are referring to, liquid limit, plastic limit, and shrinkage limit, has to be determined for the same soil sample. You cannot determine those values for different soil samples, and you cannot make any comparison between liquid limit, plastic limit, and shrinkage limit values for differently tested soil samples. Okay, for the same soil sample, you are required to determine all those liquid limit, plastic limit, and shrinkage limit values. So once the liquid limit and plastic limit value of that particular soil is known, then we go on to determine another parameter, okay, which is what is called as plasticity index. Okay, plasticity index is nothing but it is the range of water content, or it is the difference between what is called as your liquid limit value and the plastic limit value of a particular soil. So that difference in water content between liquid limit and plastic limit value of that particular soil is what we call it as the plasticity index value of that particular soil. So it is that range of water content over which the soil gets transformed from what is called as plastic state to that of your liquid state. So that much range of water content, that's a border between in the other way, it is that much amount of water content at which the soil would be existing in what is called as a plastic state, to be more specific. So it is that range of water content which exists between your liquid limit to that of your plastic limit, or plastic limit to that of your liquid limit. So that much difference in water content over which your soil is existing in a state of what is called as plastic condition. That difference in water content is what we are calling it as plasticity index. Plasticity index indicates the degree of plasticity of that particular soil. The greater the difference between liquid limit and the plastic limit, the greater is the plasticity of the soil. So if the difference between the liquid limit and the plastic limit values, whatever you are trying to determine, if the difference between them is very high, which indicates that the soil has got higher plasticity nature, high nature of plasticity, which indicates that in such kind of soils, you are going to have more amount of compressibility happening, or more amount of settlements happening, and to be more specific, consolidation settlements we call it as. So that consolidation settlements are going to be very high in such kind of soils which exhibits more plasticity nature. Okay. In case if the difference between the liquid limit and the plastic limit values are very less, it means that the soil, that particular soil, what we are looking at, has got least nature of plasticity behavior. And if this liquid limit and plastic limit values are more or less same for that particular soil, then such kind of soil is what we call it as non-plastic. I repeat, the soils whose liquid limit and plastic limit values are more or less coming out to be same, then such kind of soils is what we call it as non-plastic soils. Or otherwise, the soils for which you cannot determine the liquid limit or plastic limit, or these Atterberg limits, such kind of soils are what we can also call it as your non-plastic soils. Non-plastic soils in the sense your cohesionless soils, soil particles which do not have the force of attraction between the particles. Such particles is what we call it as your non-plastic soils. So example, gravelly soil, your sandy soil are the best examples of your non-plastic soils. A cohesionless soil has zero plasticity index. So such soils are basically called as your non-plastic soils. And fat clays are nothing but the clays soil which are more having a greasy nature of bonding between the particles, more of cohesive nature of bonding between the particles, are said to be highly plastic, and they are going to be possessing high plasticity index. So for such kind of soils, when you are trying to determine the plasticity index value, so that plasticity index value comes out to be relatively high in the case of what is called as your fat clays. So any kind of soil, whenever you are given with, when you are required to calculate your consistency limits or your Atterberg limits values, you have to be carefully determining your liquid limit value, plastic limit value, and subsequently the shrinkage limit value on that particular soil. And whatever the values that you are going to be determining, you cannot be referring that values in terms of fraction. Rather, we'll be rounding up those values to say, okay, my liquid limit value of this particular soil is 40 or 39 or 38. You will not be generally saying as liquid limit is equal to 33.414 or 413 or 33.4. You will not be generally representing like that. You will be rounding it off to say, okay, liquid limit value of this soil is so and so, plastic limit value of the soil is so and so, and accordingly the plasticity index value of the soil is so and so. You will be rounding it off to the nearest whole number. If either the liquid limit or plastic limit could not be determined for that particular soil, or if at all you are determining, and if the liquid limit and plastic limit what is determined for that particular soil, if at all both of them are coming out to be more or less same, then in such particular case, we categorize that particular soil as non-plastic. The plasticity index is a very important parameter in classifying your fine-grained soils. Okay. So this plasticity index, what we are going to be determining, is going to be playing a major role in understanding how your fine grained soil classification has to be done. And this particular plasticity index, as I said, it's going to be playing a major role. It's a fundamental term which is going to be very useful for us in understanding what is called as your Casegrande's plasticity chart, where Casegrande has developed a plasticity chart to understand the plastic nature or plasticity characteristics of that particular soil, where it's a graph which is plotted between the liquid limit value indicated on the horizontal axis and the plasticity index value, which is represented on the vertical axis. Okay, so you are going to be having a standard chart, what is given, which we will be seeing later on. Okay, so from that standard chart, what is developed, we'll be able to identify what kind of soil that so-called which you have tested, whether it is to be categorized as highly compressible clay or low compressible clay or intermediate compressible clay. Because when you say fine grained soil can be a silty soil or clayey soil. Now, whether that particular soil what I have tested is to be called as a silt or clay, and if it is called as a silt, whether it is highly compressible or intermediate compressible or low compressible, whether if it is a clay, highly compressible clay or intermediate compressible clay or low compressible clay. Okay, so that classification, and it is also that so-called Casegrande's plasticity chart is also going to be useful for us to classify your organic soils also. In case if that particular fine grained soil what you are referring to, if it contains some organic matter because of which the decomposition characteristics, all that will not be exactly knowing, but we can try to classify, okay, this particular soil as your organic soil or inorganic soil, or what kind of soil it is, can also be classified based on your Casegrande's plasticity chart. So in that case of Casegrande's plasticity chart, how that Casegrande's plasticity chart is developed means based on what is called as the liquid limit value and the subsequent plasticity index value of that particular different soils on which Casegrande has conducted tests. So based on which he has developed a standard chart, and based on that standard chart, you can go on to classify your fine grained soil. Okay, so where this Casegrande's plasticity chart is going to be very much useful in the discussions with regard to that of your unified soil classification system or your Indian standard soil classification system. So according to these classification systems, how the fine grained soil classification is done means it is on the basis of what is called as your Casegrande's plasticity chart. Now, how this Casegrande's plasticity chart is developed, it is based on the liquid limit values and the plasticity index values for different fine grained soils what are tested. So based on which the Casegrande has proposed this standard chart. Now, for that given soil sample, whatever the soil sample for which you are required to determine your Atterberg limits or consistency limits, that soil for which the soil whatever is given, you will determine the liquid limit, you will determine your plastic limit. So once the liquid limit and plastic limit data is known, then you can get what is your plasticity index value of that soil. So we go back to that Casegrande's plasticity chart, and based on the liquid limit value what you have got and the plasticity index value that you have got, you will locate a point on that standard chart. And where is that point falling? Based on that, we'll try to classify your so-called fine grained soil as silt or clay or organic soil. If it is silt or clay or organic soil, whether it is low compressible or high compressible or what is it, that we are going to be clearly understanding by looking at where that point is falling on that plasticity chart. That's how we go on to classify your fine grained soil. So according to Burmester, based on the plasticity index values that we get for your soil, we categorize that particular soil as non-plastic or slightly plastic or low plastic or medium plastic or high plastic or very high plastic soils or high plasticity soils. So based on the plasticity index values of that particular soil. If the plasticity index value what we calculate is around 0, then we call that soil as non-plastic. If the plasticity index is in between 1 to 5, we call it as slightly plastic soils or soils exhibiting slight plasticity nature of characteristics. And likewise for different other plasticity index between 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 40 and greater than 40, we categorize that particular soil as different soil exhibiting different nature of your plasticity characteristics. Based on your plasticity index values, we are going to be categorizing it. Another term what we are going to be coming across with is what is called as liquidity index, where this liquidity index is another relative consistency term which we are going to be using in the case of your cohesive soil. Okay. So where it is defined as the ratio of difference of natural water content to that of your plastic limit value of the soil to that of the plasticity index. Okay. So in the numerator, what you will have is WC. WC indicates it is the natural moisture content or the field moisture content what is existing in that particular soil. So when you are taking out the soil sample from the field, what was the water content that was existing in that soil? That is what we call it as natural moisture content or field moisture content. Okay. So once we know that what is the natural moisture content or field moisture content present in that particular soil, and for that particular soil sample what you have taken out from the field, if you can determine the plastic limit value for that particular soil, then field moisture content minus plastic limit value of the soil divided by plasticity index of that particular soil, that's nothing but liquid limit minus plastic limit. So if I can try to calculate, so based on which we are going to be getting what is called as liquidity index of that particular soil. So based on this liquidity index, and later on I'll be talking about what is called as consistency index. So based on this liquidity index and consistency index of the soil, you will be able to say the nature of the soil, whether that soil is going to be soft or stiff or medium stiff, how is it going to be, we'll be understanding the consistency of that soil, we'll be able to understand based on this liquidity index and subsequently the plasticity index value that we are going to be determining. So that so-called liquidity index what we are going to be determining can be calculated based on the expression what we have seen earlier. So the in situ moisture content for a sensitive clay may be greater than that of the liquid limit value of that particular soil. Sometimes when we say the soil to be more sensitive, what do we mean by this sensitive soils and so on, we'll understand it more in detail as we go on with the course. Okay. So in case for now understand there is something called as a sensitive soil or sensitive clay. So in such kind of sensitive clays, the field moisture content could also be greater than that of your liquid limit value of that particular soil. So in such particular case, the liquidity index value can be greater than 1. But otherwise, in general, the soils where you come across what is called as over consolidated. Okay. So in all such particular cases, natural moisture content is always less than that of your plastic limit value of the soil. So in such case, the liquidity index value is going to be less than 1. So as I mentioned, based on the liquidity index values that you are going to be obtaining, you can classify the condition or the consistency characteristics of that particular soil as a liquid material or very soft material or a soft material or a medium stiff or semi-solid. So what is it? Depending on the liquidity index of the soil, you can go on to subsequently understand that. Another term that is consistency index, which is represented as CI. So where it is defined as the difference in water contents. In the numerator, if you look at here, it is the difference in liquid limit value of the soil to that of your field moisture content. So liquid limit minus the field moisture content divided by the plasticity index. So this ratio is what we call it as the consistency index value of your soil. And based on the consistency index value of the soil, once again, we can classify the condition of your soil, or we can say what is the consistency of that particular soil, at what state that soil is existing. Next is another term, what is called as activity. And this term activity is again going to play a role in telling us what is the nature of that particular soil. Whether that soil is going to be exhibiting more of swelling characteristics, or whether that particular soils are exhibiting less swelling characteristics or no swelling characteristics, is what we can understand from this particular parameter, what is called as the activity. Okay. Generally, this term activity is what we are going to be talking about when in the case of what is called as your fine-grained soils, and particularly in the case of your clay type of soils, where you are going to be mainly calculating this activity value of that particular soil to understand the nature of the soil again. So clay soils necessarily do not contain 100% of clay sized particle. When we say it's a clay soil, it doesn't mean 100% of particles that are existing in that soil has to be clayey particles. But more the proportion of clay particles existing in that soil would give you more chances of having swelling characteristics for that particular soil. That's something what we need to understand, because more clay particles, if they are there, more tendency of absorbing the water is going to be more, because of which increase in volume of that soil can certainly happen because of more proportion of clay particles existing in that particular soil. So for such kind of soils which has got more or less or what tendency of swelling characteristics, what is the tendency of swelling characteristics that particular soil is exhibiting, if I want to know. So for such particular soil we need to determine what is called as the activity. Activity is nothing but it's a number what we are going to determine for a given soil. How this activity is defined means, activity is defined as the ratio of plasticity index to that of your percentage of clay fraction what is existing in that particular given soil. I repeat, it is nothing but it is defined as the ratio of plasticity index to that of your percentage of clay fraction. But in the expression, if you see here, it is said as percentage of particles by weight which are finer than 2 microns. So all those particles which are finer than 2 microns is what we call it as your clay particles. Okay, that's the reason why I am simply saying that activity is what I can define it as the ratio of plasticity index to that of your percentage of clay fraction. Now, how do I get this percentage of clay fraction? So if you are given with some soil, for that particular soil, if you can plot the complete grain size distribution curve, and from that complete grain size distribution curve, I can look on to understand how much percentage of the particles are finer than your 2 micron size. So that much percentage of particles is what we call it as your clay proportion in that soil. So from there, from that grain size distribution curve, I can go on to calculate what is the percentage of clay fraction existing in that soil. So that ratio of plasticity index to that of your percentage of clay fraction is what we call it as activity value of that particular soil. And depending on the activity value, what we are going to be getting, we are going to be classifying the soil as inactive clay, or normally active clay, or highly active clay. Inactive in the sense not exhibiting any of your swelling characteristics. Normally active in the sense exhibiting certain nature of swelling characteristic. Very active or active clay, if we need to say, it is exhibiting high nature of swelling characteristics. Such kind of soil is what we call it as highly active clay. Next, another Atterberg limits that we need to be talking about is what is called as shrinkage limit. Okay, so what is meant by shrinkage limit? Once again, shrinkage limit is nothing but it is the moisture content or the water content what is existing in the soil at which a further decrease in water content do not cause any change in the volume of the soil. I repeat, already we have talked about what is meant by liquid limit, plastic limit, and shrinkage limit also earlier in the last class. Now, how are we defining the shrinkage limit? Means it is nothing but it is the water content at which the soil sample gets changed from what is called as your solid state to semi-solid state, or semi-solid to that of a solid state. That water content is what we call it as your shrinkage limit value of the soil. That is one way of defining what is shrinkage limit. The other way of defining the shrinkage limit is it is the water content at which a further decrease in water content in the soil do not cause any change in the volume of the soil. Such water content is what we call it as your shrinkage limit. Now, how are we going to determine this particular shrinkage limit value of the given soil? So what we try to do is, once again, we take that fine grained soil for which the shrinkage limit value has to be determined. So take that fine grained soil, thoroughly mix with some quantity of water. How much? There is nothing like that. Add some sufficient amount of water so that no, your soil, what you are thoroughly mixing with the water, turns to a kind of a paste. Now take that paste, put it into a glass cup which has got a diameter of 44.5 mm and a height of 12.5 mm. It's a cylindrical glass cup. Okay, cylindrical cup into which you are going to be placing this soil paste. And once the soil paste is placed into that particular cup, go on to measure what is that weight of that soil which you have placed into that particular cup. So measure the weight. That weight is nothing but we will be calling it as, let's say, M1. That's the mass of the soil which is placed into that cup, which is thoroughly mixed with water. Okay, so that mass is what we call it as M1. And now allow that soil sample to naturally dry for some period of time until the color gets changed. Okay, so allow that soil sample in natural drying process. And once that soil is allowed to get dried in natural drying process, where you see there is no further change in volume of the soil taking place because of your natural drying process, then take this soil sample and place it inside your oven. Sir, I am not having that much time, I cannot wait means, then immediately after placing your soil sample into that cup, measure the initial weight of the soil sample, what is placed into the cup, and place it inside your oven. Whatever the weight, no problem. After placing the soil sample inside the oven, what is going to happen? The water which is there in that soil gets evaporated. But the earlier procedure, what I have told you, what is we have said, place the soil sample into that cup, allow that soil sample to have a natural drying process, where you are going to see, because of that natural evaporation happening from that soil, because of whatever outside temperature, so water starts evaporating, and because of which you see there is a decrease in volume of the soil continuously taking place. And after some time you would find that there is not much further change in volume of the soil taking place. So which indicates that whatever the water content that is present in that particular soil has reached to what is called as your shrinkage limit state. But however, you cannot now directly go on to check how much is the water content that is existing in that particular soil. It may not be very appropriate, because exactly we may not be able to say, okay, now the volume has stopped changing. But just to give you an idea, I'm saying that. So when you find there is no further change in volume happening, that time from where you find there is no further change in volume of the soil happening, then the corresponding water content what was existing in that soil was exactly to be called as the shrinkage limit value of the soil. But however, it is not that simple for us to determine, okay, when my volume of the soil is not getting changed and what is the corresponding water content existing in that soil. So it may not be very feasible solution. So in such case, what we try to do is place it inside the oven, allow the water to completely get evaporated, and take out the soil sample from the oven and determine the weight of that soil sample which is there inside that cup. And what do we get from that? We'll be able to get what is the oven dried weight of that soil sample. Oven dried weight of the soil sample is nothing but it's the weight of your soil solids existing in that soil sample only. Okay. So initially, what was the weight of the soil sample along with the water is known. Finally, what is the weight of the soil solids is known to you. And now what we are going to be determining is from this shrinkage limit state test, okay, change in weights is what we have measured. Now what we are also going to be measuring is, ultimately what you wanted is how much is the water content existing in that soil sample exactly at a state where there is no further change in the volume happening. That state of soil corresponding water content is shrinkage limit. So for that, I should understand in terms of how much change in moisture content took place, and as well as how much change in volume of the soil happened also I should be knowing. Okay. So for determining how much change in the volume took place in that soil sample, so what we try to do is we try to make use of mercury. So we place that soil sample, oven dried soil sample, into a cup. That soil sample is going to be placed into that cup of standard volume. And we know what is the initial volume of the cup, into which you placed your oven dried soil sample, and the remaining volume of the cup we are going to be pouring with what is called as mercury. As the density of the mercury is high, it is not possible for the mercury to penetrate into the void spaces existing in that oven dried soil sample. So that's the reason why we use mercury to subsequently determine what is the decrease in volume of that soil sample. Initially, the volume of the soil sample, you know, and now finally, what is the volume of the soil sample is what you can subsequently determine by pouring your mercury into the remaining portion of that particular cup in which your soil sample was initially placed. Then from which you can understand what is by measuring what was the volume of that mercury which got accumulated into that remaining portion of the cup, if you can measure the volume of that mercury, which will tell you what is the change in volume of the soil sample. Change in volume of the soil sample is something what we have determined. And now let's see how to find out your shrinkage limit value of the soil. So shrinkage limit value of the soil is what we write it as M1 minus M2. What is this M1 minus M2 giving you? M1 is the initial weight of the soil. M2 is the final weight of the soil. That's the dry weight of the soil. So M1 minus M2 gives you the complete weight of the water. But we don't want the complete weight of the water. We want only the water corresponding to the decrease with respect to that of your shrinkage limit condition. Okay. So M1 minus M2 minus the corresponding decrease in weight of water exactly due to the decrease in volume of the soil sample. So if the weight of water corresponding to the decrease in the volume of the soil sample, if I want to determine, so decrease in volume of the soil sample, initial volume of the soil sample is known, final volume of the soil sample you are trying to calculate by making use of the mercury there. Okay, so V1 minus V2 into unit weight of water, if you can do, then I'll be able to get what is the weight of water which got evaporated in the process of decrease in volume of the soil. Total weight of water, you know, weight of water which got evaporated in the process of decrease in volume of the soil, you know, which gives you what is the weight of water which corresponds to your shrinkage limit condition divided by weight of your soil solids. Weight of water by weight of soil solids. So weight of water corresponding to shrinkage limit condition. Yes, we have got it. And divided by weight of solids is nothing but it is the oven red weight of your soil sample. So that's nothing but M2. So from this, we'll be able to get what is the shrinkage limit value of your soil. So this is how we are going to be determining the shrinkage limit value of your so-called fine grained soil in our laboratory. So this is the cup into which your initial soil sample is placed, and upon drying process you find that the volume of the soil is getting decreased, and into this remaining portion of this we are going to be filling it with mercury, and how much quantity of mercury was filled into this particular cup I can measure, and then accordingly I can understand what is the corresponding decrease in volume of that particular soil sample. And here is another parameter what we are going to be talking about, which is what is called as shrinkage ratio, where this shrinkage ratio value can be calculated in terms of your shrinkage limit value of that particular soil. So it's another parameter that can be determined from your shrinkage limit test, which is what is called as your shrinkage ratio, which is defined as the ratio of volume change of the soil as a percentage of your dry volume to the corresponding change in your moisture content. So your shrinkage ratio, let me write it here. It is defined as the ratio of volume change. Okay, volume change in your soil. What is the volume change in your soil when you are carrying out your shrinkage limit test? V1 minus V2 as a percentage of your dry volume of the soil. Now, percentage of dry volume in the sense, in the denominator I should be substituting what is the dry volume of the soil. It means when the soil sample is dry, what is the volume? That's nothing but V2. Okay, percentage of the it's defined as the ratio of volume change of the soil as a percentage to that of your dry volume. Percentage means into 100, and further is their expression to the corresponding change in moisture content. Now, what is the corresponding change in moisture content indicated as? Initial moisture content minus your shrinkage limit water content. Okay, so in order to have that change in volume, the corresponding decrease in water content happening in the soil is initial water content to that of the state of shrinkage limit water content. That this is what we define it as. This expression is exactly what we define it as here, shrinkage ratio of the soil. And this particular expression, upon rewriting it, it gets modified something simply like this. Shrinkage ratio can be simply represented as M2 by V2 into rho W, where M2 is nothing but dry mass of the soil and V2 is nothing but your dry volume of the soil, or in fact I can say volume of the soil in the dry state or at the state of your shrinkage limit condition into rho W is indicating you the unit weight of water. In case if you are talking in terms of mass, we call it as density of water. In case if you are talking in terms of the weights, you call it as your unit weight of water. And this expression, whatever we see here indicated in the top, how is it getting modified to be written as this? Okay. So how we are going to be writing it means your initial water content minus your shrinkage limit water content. Okay. So this Wi minus WSL is nothing but it is the change in water content in that particular soil. Now change in water content means it is the generally water content means it is the weight of water to that of your weight of solids. Now change in water content means it is the change in water quantity of water, change in weight of water to that of your weight of solids. Now what is the change in weight of water means? Change in weight of water is what I can represent in terms of the change in volume of the soil. So ultimately I can say V1 minus V2 into rho W. In terms of volume, if I talk, I should multiply it with your density of water to get what is the change in weight of water divided by weight of your soil solids. Okay. So this Wi minus WSL in the denominator can be simply replaced by V1 minus V2 into rho W by Vs. So in the process, I can rewrite my expression as shrinkage ratio is equal to V1 minus V2 by V2 into 100 divided by Wi minus WSL is what we can write it as V1 minus V2 divided by Ws, this total into rho W. So V1 minus V2 gets cancelled. So therefore your shrinkage ratio is what we can write it as Ws goes to the numerator. So Ws divided by V2 into rho W is going to be there in the denominator into 100 in percentage if you are defining it. What is Ws? It is nothing but the weight of the soil in dry state. Weight of the soil solids means it is the weight of the soil in dry state. So weight of the soil, how much was the mass of the soil in dry state is what we have it as M2. Okay. So shrinkage ratio is nothing but M2 by V2 into rho W. That is what the final expression represented here. And this shrinkage ratio can also be represented in terms of the specific gravity of that particular soil solids and in terms of the shrinkage limit value of that particular soil solids as the expression what is indicated here, where specific gravity of soil solids can be given as 1 by SR, that is shrinkage ratio, minus SL indicates your shrinkage limit divided by 100. And the earlier expression of your shrinkage limit, what we have talked about, instead of looking in terms of this expression, it can also be, sometimes you'll also be finding that expression for shrinkage limit, which is indicated even like this, that is gamma W by gamma D minus 1 by GS. So from this expression only, you are writing your expression for shrinkage ratio, shrinkage limit, and relation between shrinkage ratio, shrinkage limit, and your specific gravity of soil solid. So how are we getting this expression? Upon modifying this general expression what we have, we are going to be getting the expression for shrinkage limit in terms of unit weight of water, in terms of your dry density of water, and specific gravity of your soil solids. And next to move on, we'll be talking about what is called as plasticity chart. So after understanding how to determine the consistency limit values for that particular given soil, we are going to be looking at what is called as a plasticity chart, which is developed by Casegrande. So which is in fact what we call it as your Casegrande's plasticity chart. So based on this Casegrande's plasticity chart, we are going to classify that fine grained soil as a silty soil or a clayey soil or an organic soil. And whether it is a silt or clay or organic soil, whether it is a low compressible or high compressible or an intermediate compressible soil is what we are going to be understanding from this plasticity chart, which is given by Casegrande. So let's go on to look at that plasticity chart directly to understand more information about what we are going to understand from this particular plasticity chart. So in this plasticity chart, what is given by Casegrande, you have got two lines, standard lines, which are indicated. One is called as A line and the other line is called as U line. And the significance of this A line is any data point what you calculate. Let's say, for example, you are given with some particular soil. whose liquid limit you have determined, whose plastic limit you have determined. So once the liquid limit and plastic limit is known, then you can calculate what is the plasticity index value of that particular soil. And once the plasticity index and the liquid limit value of that particular soil is known, then I'll come to this standard chart, plasticity chart, and I'll try to locate, okay, how much is the liquid limit value? Let's say the liquid limit value is something 40. And what is the plasticity index value? Plasticity index value of that soil, I have got it as something, let's say 6. Okay. For liquid limit of 40, plasticity index value of 6. Okay. That point might be coming. I might be getting the point on the chart somewhere here. Now, what is this point telling me? That point should tell me what is the classification of that soil. Okay. So what now I should understand is all that soils whose data points fall below your A line. When you are marking that liquid limit and plasticity index data on your plasticity chart, if the point lies below the A line, then we categorize that particular soil as silt or organic soil. I repeat, if that point falls below the A line, then that particular soil is categorized as categorized as either silt or your organic soil. In case if that point falls above the A line, then that particular soil is categorized as clayey soil. I repeat, if the point falls below the A line, then we call it as your silty soil or organic soil. If the point falls above the A line, then we call it as your clayey soil. Sir, if point falls below the A line, you are saying it is to be called as either silt or silt or organic soil. Then how do I exactly know whether it is a silty soil or an organic soil? So depending on the color of the soil sample and depending on the decomposition characteristics of that particular soil, you will be able to understand further that whether it is, and even based on the order, that is nothing but smell also when you look at. So you will be able to understand if you have a false smell, which indicates that there is some decomposing matter present in that particular soil, or such kind of soil is what we call it as organic soil. If there is no indication of false smell or dark nature of color in that particular soil, which indicates that it is nothing but it is a silty soil, not an organic soil. So if data point falls below the A line, and depending on the other characteristics as I mentioned, so you can understand whether it is a silty soil or an organic soil. If the point falls above the A line, then it is what is called as your clay soil. And from this plasticity chart, further what we are going to understand is, according to Indian standard soil classification system, if I need to understand, if the soil for which the liquid limit value what we have got is greater than 50, I repeat, if the liquid limit value of that soil what you have got is greater than 50, then that particular soil is what we call it as high compressible. If the liquid limit value is greater than 50. In case if the liquid limit value is less than 35, we call that particular soil to be low compressible. We'll try to talk about this more in detail in the next class, where we are going to be talking about soil classification systems. Here, let us just try to have an idea about your plasticity chart. In case if the liquid limit value lies in between 35 to 50, then we call it as intermediate compressible. That particular soil, we call it as intermediate compressible. Now, whether it is to be called as intermediate compressible clay or intermediate compressible silt or intermediate compressible organic soil or low compressible clay or low compressible silt or low compressible organic soil or high compressible clay or high compressible silt or high compressible organic soil, that depends on whether that data point of that soil falls below the A line or falls above the A line. Let's say, for example, if the data point is falling somewhere here. Now, what is this point telling me? The liquid limit value of that soil is greater than 50 and that point is below the A line. Now, if that point is below the A line, then the soil is your silty soil or your organic soil. And the liquid limit value is greater than 50. And depending on the smell, the color, and decomposing characteristics, I'll be able to categorize it as whether it is, as it is falling below the A line. I can further understand it as whether it is a silt or organic soil. Let's say it is a silt. Silt falling below the A line with liquid limit greater than 50. Then what should I call it as? Liquid limit greater than 50, high compressible. Below the A line, it is silt. So high compressible silt is what we categorize that particular soil as. In case if I have some data point falling somewhere in this region, Liquid limit is in between 35 to 50. So it is intermediate compressible, and that point is above the A line. Then I should be calling it as intermediate compressible clay. And if the point falls somewhere here, then it is above the A line and liquid limit less than 35. So we call it as your low compressible clay. So likewise, accordingly, we'll be understanding. This is according to your Indian standard soil classification system. You categorize the liquid limits into 3 categories as low compressible, intermediate compressible, and high compressible. Based on unified classification system, which is the standard classification from which only your Indian standard classification is derived. So based on unified soil classification system, you classify the soil as either high compressible or simply low compressible. In case if the liquid limit value is greater than 50, we categorize it as high compressible. In case if the liquid limit value of the soil is less than 50, we categorize it as low compressible. That's it. Yeah. Now look at this hatched region, this shaded region. What is this shaded region indicating you means? In case if the data point falls anywhere on this shaded region, your Casegrande could not give a clear picture of whether that categorization of the soil has to be called as low compressible clay or low compressible silt. Okay, that subcategorization was not very clearly evident. So because of which he said, because for some soils what he has tested, some silty soils were falling in that region, some clay soils were also falling in that region, because of which he gave a dual notation, like if your data point falls in that particular region for a soil, if liquid limit is somewhere in between the range, and plasticity index value falls in between 4 to 7. This hatched region corresponds to the plasticity index value going from 4 to 7. Okay, above the A line with the plasticity index in between 4 to 7. So if the data point falls in this region, then that particular soil cannot be very clearly categorized as whether it is to be called as a low compressible clay or low compressible silt. So in such case, we call it as low compressible silt and low compressible clay. A dual way of indicating that particular soil, where you do not have a clear idea about what type of soil it is. Okay, so this is something what this plasticity chart is going to be telling us. In case if the data point what is for that fine grained soil based on the liquid limit value and the plasticity index value what you have determined, if the point falls above your U line, then you cannot clearly say what type of soil it is, because the data what you get above the A line, above the U line, the data cannot be considered as the correct test data. So it is going to be radical data. You have to repeat your test again. In case if the data point what you are getting is falling above your U line, you are required to repeat your consistency limit test for that particular soil again. Okay, so this is something about your Casegrande's plasticity chart. Everything already I have talked about in detail. Okay, so this is your Casegrande's plasticity chart, and based on this Casegrande's plasticity chart, we are going to be classifying your fine grained soil. And when we talk about the classification of your soil in the next class, we are going to be making use of your mechanical sieve analysis concepts, are from the grain size distribution analysis. We are going to be categorizing your coarse grain soils, and based on this Casegrande's plasticity chart, we are going to be classifying your fine grain soils. Okay, so in today's class we have talked about what are the other different methods by which you can determine the liquid limit value of the fine grain soil, and we have also seen how to determine the plastic limit value, shrinkage limit value, and we have also talked about various other parameters like plasticity index, liquidity index, and consistency index values of your soil. Okay, so with this we'll be stopping our discussion for today. In the next class we'll be continuing our discussion. Thank you.